Welcome to the next episode of Who's Got Next. I'm Seth Berry here with Jared Hallis, and we're here to talk about some Michigan football recruiting. Obviously there's a lot of news going on in the world of Michigan football right now, and recruiting is a little bit uh, you know a little bit weird right now with the Jim Harbaugh situation and things going on with that. And today's a big day as well. We're recording on Friday, January 13th. So this is it's the end of the dead period. So you can have, uh, recruits back on, visiting campus, visiting Ann Arbor to get some guys on campus at Michigan. So coaches can connect with them in that way. So, that's a big day in that sense. And there's a lot to talk about, Jared, in terms of recruiting. But first of all, how's it going over there? And, how was your new year?
We're great, man. I know that we were supposed to get on here yesterday. Had a pretty scary storm roll through, but happy to be here. New Year's going well so far. Excited to get the ball rolling with the recruiting coverage for the 2024 class and to get this podcast going for this year.
Yeah, for sure. So it's the first and foremost thing I think we have to talk about, and the biggest news right now is the situation, obviously with Jim Harbaugh at Michigan, and
Mhm.
whether obviously he's interviewed with the Broncos virtually. There's been some NFL talk. There's also been talks of him, talking with athletic director Ward Manuel and President Santa Ono about getting a restructured deal done. And, I think the consensus is that, he likes Michigan and he wants to stay at Michigan, but, he could have always have his options open and have half a foot out the door as well, to where if an NFL opportunity comes available and Michigan doesn't get this done in terms of a restructured deal or something that both parties can agree on, then he could be open to an NFL option. So that's kind of where we're at with that, and that obviously relates to recruiting in the sense to where
Good
for the
team.
second year in a row, you're having a situation to where great momentum in the program. Obviously, with coming off of two Big Ten championships, you beat Ohio State 2 years in a row, and you figure, this is really good. This is great momentum. You figure the recruiting trail is going to be hot, with guys just wanting to come to Michigan, and maybe you can put together, a top 10 class. Obviously, we saw the 2023 class wasn't not that it won't pan out, but it wasn't, coming off a Big Ten title, you would expect it to be, to rank a little higher.
Mhm.
Obviously we all talk about the 2018 class, where that class was ranked a little lower, right? And they ended up having some guys who really contributed and had great careers at Michigan. So by no means does that mean the 23 class isn't going to pan out, but if you consistently have classes that, are outside of the top 15 or so, how sustainable is that going to be in a program?
True.
Um, so the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about today, in relating to that, is five-star quarterback Jaden Davis, the quarterback from Providence Day. He's expected to. He's been expected to commit to Michigan, most likely for a while now. One of our national reporters at Rivals interviewed him earlier in the week, and he was talking about, he's kind of waiting to see what Jim Harbaugh is going to do, and waiting to see what coaches are going to decide. And I don't think it's any secret that that's a big topic of conversation, and I think Davis is kind of holding his process up based off of what's happening with Jim Harbaugh. Obviously, there's other schools that he's communicating to and talking with that could that could come into play. But I think the longer this drags on, the worse this is for Michigan. And I just wanted Jared to get some of your thoughts on the Jaden Davis situation, and your opinion on where that stands right now.
Yeah, I mean when I came on to the Maize and Blue Review in December, it seemed like it was no doubt at all that Jaden Davis was the top guy. Um, and the priority. And even for that time period, obviously the staff was trying to close out the 2023 class, or at least for the early period. But there was still such I guess, just a vibe that Jaden Davis was like the number one guy on the board, and someone who, again, like you said, a lot of people were expecting to have made that commitment by now. And you have to wonder, with what happened last year, maybe he, thought, let's wait and see if that happens again this year, so I don't pull the trigger early. And then now here we are, and it is happening again. And obviously, again, like you said, he's keeping an eye on that, like he talked about with Adam. Not to give away too much of his story, but he's keeping a close eye on it. And whether or not Harbaugh stays is gonna be a big factor in his decision. So certainly, it affects recruiting a lot. And I know that a lot of people internally are probably super tired of it because it maybe isn't a great look for them. They should be closing these guys in a lot of people's eyes. But at the end of the day, I mean, when your head coach is interviewing with the NFL every year, or at least rumored to be, then it certainly has an impact, especially, right around this time when, again, like you said, just won another Big Ten championship and competed for the college football playoff. Things should be going better, but here we are.
Yeah, and I think it's telling as well when you have, people talk about this being a problem and how it affects recruiting, but when it's affecting your number one target in the class, kind of your prize possession target in 2024, then that's a concern. And it's a position obviously that Michigan needs to hit on this class because they missed out on a quarterback in 2023, and who's to say what happens with JJ McCarthy, after this next season, if he has, a really good year. I'm sure he'll have some NFL scouts that are looking at him. So that quarterback situation is something that Michigan has to hit on in this class. And I think, considering what the situation is, this is concerning. Obviously, if it comes out, in these next few days, once we get, I doubt anything would be announced on Saturday or Sunday with the NFL playoffs and such. But if we get to Monday and it's announced that Harbaugh, has a restructured, contract and he's going to stay at Michigan and whatever, at least for now, at least for this year, I think everything could be, the dust can settle and Davis, and that was a term he used, right? That just waiting for the dust to settle, that Davis could look at that and say, okay, he's here, he's firm in his commitment to Michigan, Harbaugh in that sense, and Davis would then, make the commitment himself, and that would be the best case scenario, and kind of to get Michigan started off in this 2024 class. Obviously they have a few commits already, but that'd be a big momentum boost for this class, considering what happened in 23, and this 24 class has a really good chance to be really good. I mean, the guys that have committed right now are high caliber players, and historically we've seen if Michigan has a little bit of a down class of 1 year, they always come back and they get in the top 12 or 10 the next year and bounce back really strong. So there's no reason to not expect that this year, so long as the Harbaugh situation works itself out. And obviously if it doesn't, then we're gonna be having entirely different conversations. So that's kind of my outlook on it. And Jared, do you have anything else to kind of add to that?
I just think, I mean, you hit on most of it. I think it's a little scary because it's obvious that Jayden Davis is their guy and has been for a while. And we've discussed on Maize and Blue Review multiple quarterback targets, but at the end of the day, it's no secret again that he's their guy. And not to say they're not recruiting other people, but I worry that they would almost have to go back to square one and go back to the drawing board to see okay, this didn't work out because of this reason. Who can we go for now? And like you said, they really need to hit in this class, and I just hope that all this can be wrapped up soon, and hopefully once it is wrapped up, you and I will be in for a busy couple months, covering a lot of guys, hopefully committing to the program now that the dust has been settled.
Yeah. And the other thing is, with Davis, is like you have, I mean, these other programs are still reaching out, right? That are interested. You have Clemson, reaching out. You have you have Tennessee. You know, obviously that's been a fun offense to watch in terms of the passing game the last year. You know, these other programs are waiting, you know, just for the tips to scale the right way and say, okay, maybe we can slide in and steal them, you know, at the last minute. So you have to, like I said, the longer this goes, the worse it is for Michigan, and hopefully just, you know, the Harbaugh situation will settle, and then Davis, you know, will then look at that and say, okay, everything's good now, and obviously that'll, you know, once the Harbaugh situation does settle, it'll be beneficial for the whole 24 class, and just so they can get this rolling like they want to. But you know, aside from that, let's move on and talk about some guys that, you know, despite the Harbaugh situation, are expected to make Michigan visits in the next couple of weeks, and guys who've already been there, you know, several times. All these guys that we're going to talk about have been. You know, the first guy I wanted to talk about here was Jacob Oden, who's he's an in-state safety from Harper Woods. He's a 4-star recruit. Michigan has been in contact with him for quite some time. He's visited Michigan over, I think he's getting close to a dozen times. He's visited about you know, definitely over 10 times. So he's been in Ann Arbor. He's familiar with the program. His dad is actually the coach at Harper Woods, so he's had a good relationship with Coach Steve Klingscale, the Michigan defensive back coach and co-defensive coordinator. They go back a long way, and you know, I talked to Oden, and he, you know, he has a lot of interest in Michigan. He talks about, you know, their you know, their ability, you know, the defensive backs to break on the ball. You know, when he watches them on TV, he kind of discusses about, you know, the relationships he's been able to build with the coaches and the contact he's had with the program. And he's going to be on campus not this weekend, but next weekend. So you know, he'll be back again, and you know, he's also visited Michigan State 6 or 7 times. So you know, I think this is you know, he named a top 5 recently, but Michigan and Michigan State are, you know, this could definitely be turn out to be a 2-horse race in the end. But Jared, what are your thoughts about Jacob Oden and the fact that he's, you know, visiting Michigan again, you know, next weekend, and if you can kind of give some thoughts about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely trending in that direction that you were talking about. You know, being a 2-horse race between the 2 in-state programs. It's going to be tough. I mean, I think a lot of people on the Michigan State side would say that they're right there neck and neck with Michigan in this recruitment. And, you know, at this point, it's sort of hard to tell because he has visited both schools a good bit. He's had similar comments about each one, just relationships wise. And you know, I think the development is one area where Michigan really needs to punch in order to close this one. You know, that's not a knock on Michigan State, but when you look at the 2 programs and you just look at what each school can do, I just Michigan State may have the edge, especially in recent history. So relationships-wise, I think that both schools are right there. Michigan State's been involved for a while. And Michigan, as you mentioned, has done a great job of getting him on campus a lot. So it's going to be interesting. I think Oden's a really good player, though, and certainly somebody that you want to have in the 2024 class. And getting him on board early could you know, help that defensive side of the ball in this class shape up really nicely with him as a leader of the class.
Yeah, he's been, you know, I agree. He's been very high on Michigan State as well, and you know, just looking at some of the comments he's made on them, you know, they do align very similarly with you know, what he talked about Michigan as well. So you know, I could definitely see, you know, obviously it could turn out to be a 2-horse race. He named a top 5. He said, you know, that could change. You know, so down the road, if there's, you know, other schools that come back into play or contact him more, you know, he could change that up. But yeah, I think the biggest thing I noted with Oden was he's really big on, you know, that relationship building, right? And what, you know, the coaches are and what the program are going to do for him in terms of, you know, just wanting him and reaching out to him and, you know, just establishing that connection with what he wants and what he wants in his recruitment and ultimately when he enrolls into the school. So yeah, those are going to be big. It's going to be big for Michigan to just continue to reach out and connect and you know, host them on campus and you know, host them for visits and things like that. But Really intriguing prospect. And I think this is going to be an intriguing, race to kind of watch as this goes on with Jacob Oden. So yeah. And then let's move on now to a couple of guys that are not in the state of Michigan, but still in the Midwest and actually in the state of Ohio. Two guys who are expected to visit this weekend. So Jordan Marshall is a 2024 running back from the state of Ohio. Waiting for his bio to come up. Here we go. So yeah, from Cincinnati, he's a 5'11", 195-pound back. He's expected to visit Michigan this weekend. Obviously, Ohio State. He has an Ohio State offer. He's from the state of Ohio, and with both these guys we talk about, the main, I don't want to say the leader right now, but obviously Ohio State, when you're that highly rated of a prospect, you're from Ohio and you have an Ohio State offer. That's going to be hard to overcome for any program that's competing with that. That being said, he has been able to establish a good connection with the Michigan coaches, and Mike Hart's done a good job there with him. It remains one of Michigan's top targets in the cycle, and if it's someone that they can, that they can get, certainly they're gonna take him. This will be his second time there if he does end up visiting this weekend as planned. So he visited in October, had a lot of good things to say about Michigan. Then I believe it was during the Michigan State game that he visited. So yeah, this is going to be something that'll be interesting to see if Michigan can hang in there in this recruitment. The fact that they would have had him on multiple times now is promising. So yeah, Jordan, Jared, what do you think? What do you think about Jordan Marshall and some of his either traits as a prospect or just what you think about Michigan's chances with him?
Yeah, like you said, I mean, when you're dealing with the in-state schools and when it's a school like Ohio State, it's certainly tough to pull these guys away from their home state and their a program that they may have grown up a fan of. However, Michigan has been involved here a little bit longer than Ohio State, and a lot of times when you see Michigan go into Ohio and win those recruiting battles, sometimes it's because they feel like Michigan just believed in them more and believed not only more but first. And that's a credit to the staff at Michigan for being able to identify those guys and go in and poach people away from Ohio State. And for reasons like that's why they're able to win 2 times in a row and being trending in the direction that they're in. But yeah, I mean, I think Ohio State is certainly going to be a contender here. I think they messed up by not prioritizing him earlier on. And I think that might tip the scale towards Michigan, at least for now. There's a lot of time for this to progress and kind of gives me the vibe of a recruitment that could be a long one. So certainly one to watch. Marshall's a good prospect. And if they're able to go in there and win that one, that would be a fantastic win. But again, just going back to what we were talking about at the beginning, I think, having some job security in place for Harbaugh and all that stuff would pay dividends not only in this recruitment but in many others as well.
Yeah. All these guys are going to visit, not only this weekend but down the road. If they come to visit this weekend and then you get that announcement, right off the heels of the visit that Harbaugh, is staying and he's returning, and you have all the assistant coaches intact, then that's just going to be another layer of positivity that Michigan can build off of, and hopefully with some of these guys, who are visiting this weekend, next weekend, down the road, that's going to be a big sell. That obviously, the assistant coaches that you're building connections with, and in this case of Jordan Marshall, Mike Hart, that he's going to be the running backs coach, for this year and beyond, and that you're establishing those connections with people who are going to be around for a little while. You mentioned something, Jared, that's very intriguing to me because you mentioned, Michigan being in a little earlier on this recruitment here, with a guy from the state of Ohio. and that's kind of been a narrative with guys who have committed to Michigan that have been from Ohio. Obviously, Steve Klinkskill has the connection there, with the Youngstown, being a Youngstown native, and he's done well, especially lately in that area. But the consensus is, and granted, it comes from mostly guys that probably didn't have an Ohio State offer, or they felt slighted because, hey, I'm a pretty highly touted prospect, or I'm a 4-star, maybe high 3-star, whatever, but I'm not getting an offer from Ohio State. They're like, what's the deal? And then they end up committing to a school like Michigan, who did show interest in them and was in on him in the process all along, and built the relationships and built the connections. And I think there's, according to, at least some of those guys, that there's a consensus that they felt kind of slighted. And that's kind of what I want to bring up with this next prospect to an extent, is this is Bryce West. He's another Ohio guy, 4-star defensive back from Cleveland. He's expected to visit Michigan. I believe it'll be his 3rd time on campus this weekend. So he's establishing a good relationship with the Wolverines. He visited for a game in the fall as well. And this is a guy that, again, and I don't know what to make of this. I haven't spoken to Bryce West yet. But I noticed he tweeted something out the other day that basically it was along the lines of, hey, if Ohio State, drops the ball on my recruitment or misses out on me, then that's going to be a big loss. And I know it kind of gave me the vibes of kind of what we were talking about, about it, if Ohio State doesn't continue to build the relationship, make the connection, like, okay, like maybe I'll go somewhere else, if you don't close on me. So I don't know, you could have taken it in multiple ways. Like it could be, obviously Ohio State, could be the favorite, and that, he's looking strongly at them still, obviously, but hey, if they mess up a little bit or don't reach out, like they should, then maybe he'll go elsewhere. What are some of your opinions on maybe on that? You don't have to talk about that if you don't want, but just on Bryce West, as a whole, and what Michigan or where Michigan might stand in his recruitment.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's interesting, just with the in-state guys in Ohio. Kind of, it sort of seems like there might be a theme. You and I aren't sitting here trying to hammer in a point that Ohio State can't recruit, because we know that isn't true. But at the same time, as you mentioned, there's been some scenarios where Michigan has been able to win some good battles against them on the recruiting grounds because of their ability to identify and prioritize these guys earlier on. West may not be as much of an example of that as Marshall is. And just going back to Marshall for a second, he got his offer very recently. The timing of that offer was super interesting due to the fact that Ohio State didn't sign a running back in their 2023 class. So it's almost like, oh, shoot. You could say similar to the quarterback situation for Michigan and for Jaden Davis, but it's different because Jaden Davis has had the Michigan offer. He's been a priority. What's different is that Ohio State is like, oh, shoot, we didn't sign a running back. We probably need to take a look at a guy in our home state that's pretty high rated. We may want to give that guy an offer before Michigan comes in here and steals him again. Again, I don't know if going back to West, it seems like they've been more on the ball as far as his recruitment goes. But there's no doubt that there's a lot of interest in Michigan as well, which is good. I mean, it's what you love to see. Obviously, it's considered probably the greatest rivalry in college football on the field. And, it seems like every year there's some really fun recruiting battles between the two as well.
Yeah, I think with these two guys, we talk about West and Marshall. If Michigan even wins one of these battles, I mean that's a huge win.
Absolutely.
Especially when you talk specifically the running back position, right? I guess corner as well, the defensive back with DJ Turner and Jamon Green and some guys leaving for the NFL and being young at that position this year. That'll be a position of need as well. But the running back too, with Corum, he's coming back, but he'll be he'll be gone after next year. And then, Donovan Edwards, depending on what he does after next year, you're going to have a need for a running back. So, either of these guys would be a huge win and a really good get. And if they were able to win one of these battles, it would just be a huge win on the trail for Michigan. So yeah.
It would, man. It would. And I think that at some point we may have to start narrowing in on West being a two-horse race, similar to talking about Odin. I think that this could be a Michigan-Ohio State type of thing. And like you said, if they're able to just get one, it's already a big win. And they've already got Luke Hamilton out of Ohio, so that's a win. Obviously, he didn't have an Ohio State offer, but just another example of the Wolverines dipping into the state of Ohio, pulling out a 5-star prospect in some cases. And I would feel like if I was an Ohio State fan, that's a dangerous trend, and I wouldn't enjoy that if I was an Ohio State fan. I mean, you got to keep the top talent in the state, and there's certainly some risk for that not to be the case this year, and obviously we saw it last year in the 2023 class as well.
Yeah, I mean, especially them. Michigan's coming off 2 wins in the rivalry. Not to say that Michigan has, reestablished dominance by any means in the rivalry, but based off of, hey, if you're prioritizing guys more so out of state and not getting, some of your in-state guys, a lot of those in-state guys are going to understand the rivalry a little better too, just growing up with it and those type of things. And once you lose a couple in a row, maybe you have to kind of adjust, like, hey, let's make sure we keep this in-state talent, in Ohio, and, make sure, which if they do prioritize that, like I'm sure they'll do just fine in that regard. And obviously they recruit very well, and they're a really good program, and they're always going to bring in talent, but it's a matter of, culturally, I think Michigan has recruited, very well over these last few years in terms of, getting guys to fit their culture and understanding, the type of football they need to play and the type of energy they need to bring to these rivalry games. So, just as a side note there, but yeah, all this stuff will be interesting to follow, as we go along in Michigan football recruiting. Make sure you subscribe to the Maize and Blue Review for all your recruiting updates, especially for your Jim Harbaugh updates right now. Our publisher Josh Henske's doing,
shout out to Josh.
yeah, done a great job, being on top of all this and getting inside information that's really good and really valuable if you're a Michigan fan to keep up on all of that Jim Harbaugh news, and to keep up on recruiting news and whatever else you need for Michigan sports, Michigan basketball, Michigan football. We've got it all here at the Maize and Blue Review. So, Jared, any final thoughts for today as far as what we talked about or anything else for you?
Yeah, I mean, towards the end there, it kind of felt like we were talking about like a recruiting rivalry, more so than we were just covering a couple recruits that are visiting this week. That kind of got off on a little tangent there, but I like it. I mean, it's certainly a topic that needs to be talked about. So it was fun. Always enjoyed, and I'm excited to be back doing this for 2023.
Yeah, and it'll be exciting, getting things kicked off, and obviously there's still a few 23 targets out there to to keep an eye on as the the February signing period isn't too long away at this point, but we're getting full swing in the 24 class, so it'll be fun to see what comes out of these, out of this weekend, out of the guys that are visiting, out of the next weekend, and there'll obviously be more guys that'll news will come out to say that they're visiting as well. So there'll be more guys, that'll down the road that we'll hear about taking visits and Michigan coaches reaching out to and things like that. So yeah, for Jared Hallis, I'm Seth Berry, signing off at the Maize and Blue Review. We'll see you guys next time, and thanks for listening.